Welcome to the Political Matrix News.
Hello, folks. This is Saturday on July 20th. We are 1 week away from President Trump's shooting. I'm Greg Fink here with Scott Miller, and we are going to be with the Political Matrix News here. We are going to bring you guys some news here about the future of the other guy who nobody's really talking about very much, according to most polls that we're going to be talking about, Biden. What do you think? What do you think should happen with Biden? Does he even know what's going on? I mean, I don't think he remembers the president being shot last week. I don't think he has any idea.
That's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous and factually inaccurate.
I'm going to be
he remembers
mean.
exactly where he was when Reagan was shot.
Oh yes, he probably remembers where he was when Reagan was shot. Whenever Trump was shot, though, he actually, I think, the left-wing conspiracy media is starting to say that it was just a glass, like a cell phone shattered. I'm seeing all kinds of tweets about that, saying it really wasn't a gunshot, and that basically
Trump rally wasn't Trump rally interrupted by Secret Service.
Yeah, exactly. Trump probably interrupted by Secret Service. That's the only way Biden can get him to stop talking. And so now we have Biden, and he can't stop talking. I think everybody wants him to go ahead and bow out. He got angry. He's trying to explain to the NAACP crew when he's talking to their crowd what Black history really means.
Yeah.
And
if only they were smart enough to determine that for themselves.
He's trying to explain to them that that he's the only one that understands it, and that he's the best president in history.
Well, thank God they got an old white. The NAACP has an old white guy to come explain to them all about Black history.
Exactly. And then we got Obama asking him to step down, Pelosi asking him to step down, and he keeps telling everybody that he is the best there has ever been, that nobody can do it like he can.
But look at what their options are. I mean, first of all, how do you bypass Kamala Harris? You know, from the left's perspective, the closest person that they've had, the opportunity that they've had to put a person of color in and a woman in, and they're going to bypass her entirely.
Well,
and still maintain their base. Good luck.
According to a video we're about to see here from AOC, real quick.
The possibility, and so what's really upset me is that these conversations, I believe in transparency. At the same time, litigating like huge conversations among people of power in public can dramatically hurt our chances depending on the outcome of that conversation. And so sometimes certain conversations are best held in private, especially if there's ambiguity or a lack of decision on it. And so what I see right now, and I want you all to know, is that over the last several weeks, there have been lots of Democrats who have been giving little anonymous quotes to the press, to some journalists, to print. And I'm not here to knock the press on it. I'm here to knock my colleagues on it. Because to me, I think that's, and I'm sorry I'm going to say it because it's after midnight, that's bullshit. Like, if you have an opinion, say it with your chest and say it in public. But the idea that you are an elected official and you are supposed to be responsible for a community and you're just going to like text some journalist on the low and say, this is what I think, but don't put my name next to it. What are you here to do? If that's your opinion and if that's what you think is best for the country, put your name on it, okay? But instead, it's all this little pick a little, talk a little to whatever, texting some pundit about what they think because they're too cowardly to like come out with a public opinion. I'm not coming for the people who have made a public statement and put their name on it. Like, Lord knows I've done plenty of that myself. I'm talking about people who are too scared to say what they want to say in public, but somehow not afraid to say what they want to say to a journalist so long as they promise not to use their name. That's a bunch of horse shit. And if Then there was recently a quote unquote senior Democratic leader that said, oh, I'm just resigning myself to a Trump victory. Leave your seat. Leave. Just leave. Like, that is so garbage. That is such a fundamental lack of leadership. And I don't care what party you're from. Like, just leave. Like, just go work for a lobbyist. Go cash in on Wall Street if that's what you feel. Like, why keep that seat warm? This job is hard. It takes a lot of effort. You're resigning yourself to losing? Why don't you just turn in your keys early and give it to someone who gives a damn? Anyways, moving on. Number 1 is the legal viability. Number 2, I don't think people understand what it takes in terms of running a presidential campaign. And I'm going to say what a lot of these folks aren't saying. I'm just going to say it. If you think that there is consensus among the people who want Joe Biden to leave, that they will support Kamala, Vice President Harris, you would be mistaken. And I'm going to say that because if they're going to come out and say all their little things on background off the record, but they're not going to be fully honest, I'm going to be honest for them. I'm in these rooms. I see what they say in conversations. A lot of them are not just interested in removing the president. They are interested in removing the whole ticket.
Anyway, we just played the video, and she basically thinks they're going to get rid of everybody. She thinks that the Democrats want to get rid of the whole ticket, and she might be right. They might want to bypass Kamala Harris and just go ahead and send her out with Biden. I mean, because the entire administration. I mean, technically, I was talking to a consultant last night. Her name's Erin. She's working actually with the Democrat campaign, and who's running against Matt Gaetz in Northwest Florida. And we were talking about how does the fundraising work? Because the money was given to Biden and Harris, not Harris or anybody else. And so technically, the funding is frozen right now. I mean, the first of all, the presidential funds have already been frozen. $100 million has already been frozen to not be used at all until they know what's going on with the big guy, as Chinese people and the Ukrainian people called Joe with Hunter Biden, and he's a big guy. And so until they know what the big guy is doing, they froze $100 million. And then they also froze the money for the Democrat Congressional Caucus. And they also froze the funding for the Democrat Senatorial Caucus, campaign caucus. They basically are freezing the money.
The donors have said that until they get rid of Biden off that ticket, they're not giving another penny. And they may ask for their money back.
Yeah, they can ask for their money back. I mean, especially, the whole theory, though, is that if Biden's off the ticket, then all those PACs that were for Biden's race, they have to be refunded at a prorated rate. And they have to be refunded, or at least they have the opportunity to be refunded. Now, the person can just keep the money, the campaign for the next one. They had to have the opportunity to be refunded at the prorated rate. And so I don't know if they're going to do that or not. There's millions of donations. That's lots of paperwork. Has a lot of work to do. Has a lot of manpower, which the Democrats don't really have. Then you have an issue here that Kamala can't use that money because Kamala's not at the top of the ticket. So she cannot use the Biden money. She has to go out and raise her own money with her own ticket. And we'll see how the crickets go with that one. Got some crickets here. Well, because that's exactly how it's going to be.
For sure. What I thought is hilarious the whole time is that they're proposing people like Mark Cuban to replace Biden at the top of the ticket. And
I think the most likely one is the Pennsylvania Governor Shapiro. I think Shapiro is the top of the ticket, and Hakeem Jeffries as a VP. I think that's the best ticket for Democrats.
The problem is, with this compressed timeline that they have, they got to find someone with national name recognition.
That's why I said those two guys.
Well,
Shapiro, he's a Pennsylvania governor, and Pennsylvania is going to be one of the most important states. Because all the other blue states are going to go blue. but you want to have somebody who's going to be a really good neutral state and a purple state. And he's a Pennsylvania governor, so I think he's probably the leading guy in the neutral states.
For people like you and me, we know him.
Yes,
News junkies
other guys
know
ain't voting.
him.
Yeah, the other people ain't voting. The other people voting are people like us. I mean,
it's not going to happen.
Exactly.
No, that guy does not have, for the compressed timeline that they have. That guy does not have the sufficient national breadth that you would need to overcome Trump. And the real problem is, but then your option is to go with someone like Cuban. The problem with Cuban is he's never been nationally vetted at all.
Yeah, Cuban's an asshole.
Well, regardless, no. Their reaction or comment to that, counter to that, is that Trump's an asshole and look at him. The difference is that Cuban, you don't know everything. He hasn't been vetted on a national stage.
Well, who's left? Gavin Newsom.
And so Gavin Newsom is someone that has enough national recognition to maybe do it. But you see, that's the problem. They don't have a high profile Democrat with enough national recognition and political who's been vetted through the political system. And the value of that is that you're spending years under that microscope. We basically know everything that's going to be wrong with you.
But Joe Scarborough.
Exactly.
Joe Scarborough could do it.
Yeah, Joe Scarborough could do it. That'd be hilarious.
He talked about running for president a long time ago. Yeah. And back when he was a Republican. And so now he's I think he's an independent, or he might be a Democrat. I don't know. I gotta look it up. But he could run as a Democrat possibly, and he does have a national name ID. And but basically, I think that this is a
But you and I both know he's got plenty of skeletons.
We're not talking about that here, okay? It's a whole different podcast.
Right.
Okay, we have to get his podcast so we can throw us off of it.
He's a media. He's a media personality. He's not a politician anymore. No, so I don't really care what kind of skeletons are in his closet. But they're definitely there.
Oh, yes, and you and I actually, I mean, I'm closer to the Scarborough family than to the Gates family, so we are, we're very close to the family, so we do know a lot of them. But I think in all reality, I think the hardest pill to swallow here.
You used to ride around in cars with Matt's dad while they were campaigning. We know plenty.
I used to stay at the Scarborough's house, folding up all his newspapers for the Sun. And I used to be, I used to write for the paper. That was actually our first journalism job, was given to me by Joe Scarborough. And my mom worked in his campaigns, was his campaign manager and everything. So we've known him since 94. But I think the hardest pill, get back to the campaign here with Biden and everything else, I think the hardest pill to swallow is that there is no answer. There is no answer. They're
painted into a corner.
They need to see this election over. They just go ahead and just realize it, that whatever it is, they're not gonna get out of the middle of the barrel, nowhere near to the top of it. They're gonna stay near the middle bottom. It's probably gonna be one of the lowest turnouts in Democrat history, especially down here in the South, because there's gonna be no excitement at the top of the ticket. People don't realize all politics is local, but all turnout is driven by the top of the ticket. And so people, I mean, I've been trying to explain that to a lot of people here in Central Florida who just for some reason cannot get it. But the reality is that as much as all politics is local on a regular governing day-to-day basis, election day is driven by the top. And if there's nothing at the top driving, people are not going to take off work to vote for a county commissioner or a city council person. And people are not going to just take off work to vote for a mid-level race. They are going to take off work to vote for the president. And without any excitement at all at the top, basically the whole Democrat Party is ceding a defeat to every other race, from senator races, the state rep races, the congressional races. It's going to kill, and it's going to gut the congressional area. It's going to gut the senatorial area, which I can't really be all that upset about, really. I mean, personally, I do hope Matt Gaetz loses. That's one Republican I do hope is gutted. But besides that, the rest of the congressional staff, I think, it's going to be great. And I think the red wave that was supposed to be here 2 years ago, just a little bit 2 years late, I think it's going to be here for the rest of the country.
Well, the bottom line is that people don't get voters do not get excited about elections. They get excited about people.
People.
And that's what the people are the ones that bring them to the polls. Not, oh, it's election day, I got something to go do. No, they know well in advance that they're excited about someone. And at this point, they can't pray that to suddenly, that people suddenly get excited about Joe Biden. There's nothing that's going to happen with Joe Biden or Kamala Harris that's going to get voters excited about showing up. Their only alternative right now is to hope that they can, and this has been their strategy for a long time, that they could get people so terrified of Trump that they'll come just to vote out of terror. But that doesn't really motivate people to vote that well.
Yeah, here we're gonna look at some polls here real quick from Real Clear Politics. See the excitement?
Well, the other function here of keeping of the down ballot races is their only potential is to get someone excited, or their voters excited about their well, in some states they're having the gubernatorial races at the same time. Most states don't. Usually the governor is off cycle of the president, but they got to figure out another top ticket race, probably a Senate race, to drive people there, because otherwise they're going to get slaughtered. And because if the Republicans are the ones that are all excited about going to vote for their candidate and the Democrats are not all excited, you're going to get more Republicans showing up to vote, regardless of how they vote. Then you're going to get Democrats showing up to vote. And if the Democrats don't show up to vote up here on these top guys, then they have strategically fewer guys to go against this guy, fewer guys to go against this guy, and down as it goes. And that's the Democrats' nightmare scenario. We could wind up with a 30 or 40 seat advantage in the House and a 10 to 15 seat advantage in the Senate, and that would crush the Democrats for decades, honestly, to come.
Yeah, I mean, take a look at this poll here from CBS. I mean, that's not really the bastion of conservative polling. 52-47 of likely voters, 2.7 margin of error. Emerson, I mean, they're up here at Trump ahead again by 4%. They're not an extremely conservative media outlet or a polling outlet. ABC News, well, okay, they got him at a tie. But the only ones that have Biden ahead is the PBS Marist poll, which Marist, they're kind of a polling company that kind of goes with, they're kind of like a little, they get picked by different groups all the time. Sometimes Marist is with CBS, sometimes Marist is with ABC. Most of the time, Marist is with PBS, though, and PBS and NPR. And that actually is the only one that has Biden ahead. And I'm pretty sure if you actually read the questions, you'll realize really quickly why he's ahead. And you look at the methodology.
Is it a registered voter poll?
Yeah, it's a registered voter poll. And usually, most of their questions are push polls and everything.
Yeah, leading
polls. As we call it, push polls technically are illegal in Florida, but we call them leading questions or message development polls. They have no idea or really any desire about the reality of the poll. They just want to see if they push this message, this negative commercial, will it make somebody more or less likely to get behind this person or not. Or they push this narrative, will it be more or less likely to get some? And so, I mean, basically they're polling based on stuff that they might or might not do as a campaign or a PAC. And they're not really asking the real question, if the election were held today, who would you vote for? Because that's really the only real question that really matters.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they were, because at the end of the day, and you and I have been doing polling for decades. I mean, the core of what we do is polling,
right?
And so we know, and we know how people create these polls. One of the things that they do is they'll do all their message testing at the beginning of the poll. So they'll say all these derogatory things about their person, and then at the end of the poll, then they start asking the data questions like, "Would you be, are you going to vote for whomever if the election were held today? Who are you going to have?" Well, when you've spent 10 minutes talking, even though you're not saying this guy is this, you say all these negative things to test the message. You've preloaded the person's mind into responding a certain way. So you get down to the end, you can swing that darn poll 10, 15 points. You know, if
Exactly.
you once you preload it with questions like that.
Yeah, and that's what people don't realize in polling. It's really much more of a, well, I got a little tilted there by the camera. You got in polling, it's more of a magic of an art of actually asking the right question to the right audience and everything. And people can dissuade it and manipulate it and tear them apart. And that's the reason why for years we've had polls who are, they just wanted to, like, basically, have a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, we wanted this guy to be ahead. So we asked a question to make sure he was ahead. That way we got paid more. You know what happened?
Mm-hmm.
And the polling industry did that for year after year, and their credibility went to the toilet. Back in the time, there's basically about 8 years ago. That's when you and I started really doing a hell of a lot of bigger polling and everything else, and a lot more of the statewide polling. And that's when we were up there with only 6 or 7 other guys. And because there's not very many of us who are willing to say no to money, yes to credibility. And so there's not very many credible pollsters out there. Now, I will change my mind on that this year. This year, it seems like a lot of people have basically, the secret formula isn't that secret. It's a pretty good formula if you're smart enough to do it. There's a lot of smart guys out there, so I'm not going to say there's not. And so a lot of these smart guys have figured it out, and it looks like everybody's on the same page this year, and they're actually asking the right question. They're asking it the right way, and they're asking likely voters, which we've been begging other pollsters to do. And because that's the only way you get accurate data, and data is really necessary because it's how you run your budgets, it's how you run your economy, it's how you run your county commission, your city councils, and everything else. If you're using junk data, you're basically wasting all that taxpayer money. And so to use it properly, you need to have the right kind of data. And so if you don't, then you're just pissing in the wind. And so this year, it seems to be everybody's on the same page as far as the likely voters. It's almost everything's a uniform with Trump being ahead. I mean, registered voters, it gets a little clunky, like Trump is barely ahead or barely behind. Unlikely voters, it's a universal,
Well, you think about it, and I've been pounding this refrain for years. It was the central theme of a speech I gave at one of the Republican quarterly meetings. Is that there is that registered voters are very disengaged from the political parties. They're the people that say, "Oh, I hate politics. I never watch the news. I never do all that." Those are the people that occasionally hear some talking head on some station, or television station or whatever, say something, and then they interpret that as a fact. When the reality is that 83% of the people in the media are registered Democrats. Yeah. And I'm not saying that's a good or a bad. I'm not saying it's like, oh, they're evil because they're Democrats. I'm saying that there are people that hold a particular point of view, and they see everything through that lens, and then and that's how they report to you what it is. So things that a more conservative commentator might view as important, these people are going to see more or be more dismissive of. Right. So they're not going to report that perspective. So if you're only relying on those people, then how are you ever going to have that a neutral perspective? And it shows in the polling because likely voter polls, registered voter polls can vary as much as 13 points off of a likely voter point. I've seen it that bad, and you never know until you get to see a lot more data.
It's also like last year. I mean, the entire DeSantis Charlie Crist poll, where almost everybody was pretty much double digits off, and that was more or less. I mean, Charlie Crist underperformed as being a statewide elected official 3 or 4 times before, and he underperformed Gillum, which is interesting. Who had never ran for statewide before, and basically, I mean, DeSantis did about the same. He spent, I think, $20 million to get an extra 400,000 votes. So, it wasn't like it was the best budgeted campaign for DeSantis on his second election, because he spent a hell of a lot more money to get a fraction more votes. But on the Democrat side, basically, the Democrats had the worst turnout ever in Florida. And that's because the top of the ticket just was not exciting. And Charlie Crist had to realize at the time, he was a little older now. He was getting exhausted. He did not run the energetic campaign he had ran 3 or 4 times before. And so, I mean, whenever your top of the ticket is weak or tired or exhausted like that, and not polling or not bringing out the people, because polls are one thing, and turning out the votes is a whole different thing. And people are yelling at us because they're like, you guys are saying that Charlie's going to do better because our polls had him doing better, and until the end. And at the end of and that's the reason why you do a lot of pollings all the way until the end. You can see as a trend. And one guy will be like 10 points ahead, and he's 9 points ahead, then he 7 points ahead. And like we had a campaign with Mike Hill and what's his name, Doug Broxson.
Yeah.
And Mike Hill came out and said, I'm 30 points ahead. And so Doug Broxson wanted us to do a poll to see if he was a state rep at the time, to see if that was really true or not. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty close to being true. And what Doug do? Doug doubled down and flipped 32 points or 35 points in 30 days. He went from being 10 or 15 points behind, because in our poll it was 15 points behind, not 30 behind. He went from being 15 behind to 15 ahead in 30 days. And I mean,
that's a 30-point swing.
Yeah, it's a 30-point swing. And you do that because, you see how the polls are trending. And so, I mean, we did a poll like basically every 4 days. And we saw, what was working to make it go up. And you just keep on following those, the recipe of making it go up, and you just don't break from that recipe. And the bread's made very well. And
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I mean, and that's exactly what you have to do with polling, is that it's not these, whenever people register polls, like 538, whenever they look at polls, whenever they give everybody their scores, they look at the scores of the last poll that was ran. And so all the trending polls up and down, realizing that campaigns do go up and down. And I mean, some candidate will go up, and he'll be 5 points ahead. Then he'll be 8 points behind. Then he'll be 6 points ahead. And so a lot of people don't want to look at that when they score pollsters. But the reality is that's the reality of campaigns. It's not that the polls are bad. The polls are different. It's just the campaign environment's different. And so once you start looking at everything in the right kind of context, you understand all that. And at the end of the day, the final poll, we always do all of our polling the day before the election.
Yeah.
I was just we poll everybody, all 15 or 16 races that we're working with the day before, and our accuracy has been within a half a point on average. And I think we've only been wrong, I think, twice out of the last 700 polls that we've done. And so, I mean, our, to get that kind of accuracy level is because we know how to ask the right kind of questions to the right kind of people. We have a formula that's in place. And now, hopefully, there's only us and Trafalgar and Rasmussen and a few others that are doing stuff like that. But hopefully, I mean, not just because we want to increase competition in our industry, but we do want good data out there. I mean, the reality is all of our taxpayers are based off data. And if you have bad data, then you're basically pissing all your tax dollars away. And so we want taxpayers to be represented properly.
Well, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Exactly.
The campaign is doing themselves a disservice if they commission results that they know aren't going to be accurate, and they do often commission polls. I've been asked myself by
city councils. The city councils do the same thing.
I was asked by a candidate for statewide election who we had done some polling. We had done some polling, not even for him. We had done some polling that just involved him. He asked us to change the results.
Yeah,
like 3 days before the election. This is can you dial it down, because that's really going to hurt my. I said, well, I can't.
Yeah, we had a developer ask us to do. We had a developer ask us to do polls, because that's another thing that people do their grants and everything else based off these data points and everything. We've had developers ask us to do polls, and it says, can you go ahead and change a minority answer and make more minorities say this answer and that? I'm like, no, what you can do is you can go ahead and call all the minorities in the district and tell them to answer the damn phone. But no, I mean, if they don't answer, we're not going to say that they did answer. And it said, well, we need more women voting here. I'm like, well, call the women and tell them to answer the phone. Yeah, here's the color ID is coming from. Tell them to answer it,
Yeah.
Because, if they don't answer the phone, I can't get their answer, and I can't wait it. And so the whole idea is that, it doesn't matter. Everybody wants to push their agenda through pollsters, and you and I have lost tens of thousands, probably millions of dollars by telling some very big, powerful people no on how they want you to basically turn data around.
Yeah. What's funny, these polls take several days to run in a lot of cases. That if you want to get enough response. Well, but if you want,
I mean, I'm kidding.
I mean, they can take one day, but sometimes they take several days. I mean, depending on the budget, they can take a couple of days to get. And one of our clients called us and asked us about what the results were like, and we told him, well, it's kind of early. We don't have a lot of results in, but you're not ahead right now. He says, oh, that can't be true. All my friends tell me I'm way ahead. Like, maybe things will change. Maybe things will change in a couple of days. Let's get the rest of the data in. And he's like, no, I want you to stop right now, and I want my money back. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't work like that. And the reason that you get prepaid, the reason you get your money up front is because of reactions just like that. I thought you were going to find out I was winning.
What happened 4 months later?
He lost by exactly what we said he was going to lose by. I mean, but because he didn't change what he was doing one bit. He kept doing the same thing, and he got what he got.
Exactly, and it was and that was one of our first story tales that we told stories about, is that we had a candidate who basically just didn't like the answers, and that's the hardest part about what we do, is that we have a lot of campaigns where we tell the guys, it sucks, you're going to lose. What do you mean? I'm like, well, you don't have any money, you're not knocking on doors, you're not asking for donations. You're not handing out palm cards, and you're only going to events that we schedule, and you're not doing anything on your own. It's like, oh, I got it.
Well, can't you make me win?
so what do we need to do to win? I'm like, well, you need to reverse all those things. You need to go ask for money, go knock on doors, and go do everything that you're not doing. Basically, all the stuff that you're not doing, do.
We had one that liked to take afternoon naps.
Yes, he had to have an afternoon 3-hour nap. And that was his whole gig, is that, I got to take my 3-hour nap before I can go door to door. Then after I go door to door, I got to go door to door for an hour, then take another 2-hour nap. I need some Botox. I got to go get my Botox real quick.
And look, I'm okay with you. You're tired. Go take your little 30-minute little power nap. Get yourself re-energized, and let's get back to work. 3-hour naps. And he's surprised he's not winning. Well, I'm sorry, dude. That's how it works. Politics is work.
But he's running now because they drew him out of the election. And one thing, sorry about that. I got distracted there. But anyway, we'll cut that part out. Okay, we'll cut that out. Anyway, so he's actually running for office right now as a county commissioner, and all he's doing is just like slandering people and slamming at people. And because of what happened in that race that we're working with him in, they drew him out of the district, so he doesn't live in that district anymore. And so now he's running for the district that that he now lives in. And so and he's his own podcaster as well, I think. And also, I think that's the next generation here, is that we tell people not just pay attention to radio and TV, but pay attention to all of us podcasters out there. There are a lot of us out there who have learned how to just go ahead and grab a mic. And right now, we want you to go ahead and like us and spam us to everybody you know, and to basically subscribe to us and follow us on Facebook. Although Facebook is not one of our friends at the moment, they seem to want to be blocking everything we're putting up there. Please, if you see it on Facebook, just share it, because we cannot get out there any other way. And TikTok, where TikTok will allow us to be on there, we are on there. We have 6 episodes on there. They have taken down 8 episodes for community standards reasons, and those were all the 8 episodes about Matt Gaetz and Don Gaetz. For some reason, TikTok is in love with the Gaetz family. We do not know why. We do not know what the secret reason is, but they just love Matt Gaetz, and they love Don Gaetz. And every commercial, every show we have about either one of them, they have taken off. But they've left everything else on. And so, but also they have that whole 10-minute counter, and we don't really stick to the 10-minute counter. So what we are going to do, we'll be cutting up some of the shows here on TikTok. We'll have a part 1 and a part 2, everything. But just subscribe to us on TikTok and start following us there. That'd be great. And we're going to go ahead and cut it off here for this segment here, and we'll be back. Have a good day.